All right, Braves fans, let's get rolling. I'm George McNair, and this is State of the Braves. Well, guys, this series against the Phillies, it really set up well. I mean, the Braves had just swept the Minnesota Twins in Minnesota. They were playing well. The offense seemed to be clicking pretty well. They won a couple of extra inning games against the Twins. It just looked like they were starting to roll. They'd won something like 9 out of 11 games, something like that. So everything seemed to be in a positive direction going into this series. They had cut the lead that the Phillies had in the NL East down to 5, which is about as close as it's been in a long time. So everything seemed to set up going into Philly. It's a tough series. It's tough to play in Philly, but a 4-game series, you really feel like if you can at least take 3 out of 4 in this series, you got the lead down to 3 with about a month to play, and now things could get really interesting in the NL East, right? And of course, that is not how this series went down. It could have. I mean, most of these games were close. I think the Braves probably let 2 games slip out of their fingers, and that's one of the frustrating things of this series. It's honestly been one of the frustrating things all season long. You just feel like the Braves are so close to more success than what they've been able to realize this year. So yeah, you go into this series. A dream scenario would have been you sweep the whole 4-game series, which seems a little unrealistic. But if you could have done that in Philly, now you're within a game of the division lead, even with a 4-game split, right? They would at least stay within 5 of the Phillies, striking distance maybe, and at least you're probably maintaining your lead in the wild card. Instead, of course, the Braves end up dropping 3 out of 4 games, including, like I said, 2 losses that they could have easily won, let's be honest. And when you are fighting not only for the division, but really just fighting for your playoff lives this year, you have to find a way to win these close games. And, they did that against the Twins, but, there's something about Philly, and there's something about going to Philadelphia when the crowd is going nuts that the Braves just have not come through over the last 3 years, and that just unfortunately continued in this series. It is disappointing, not to be fatalistic or anything, but it does seem like this team just has not yet had what it's taken to come through in the big moments, and especially getting over humps like this against good teams. Now the Phillies have not been playing well. They've actually still have one of the worst records in the National League after the All-Star break. So you did come in here feeling like the Braves were playing really good. The Phillies maybe started turning around some of that, but still the Braves had been playing better than the Phillies over the last about 15 games or so, and yet they just could not do what it took to, like I said, at the very least, get a series split, if not win the series. So before I get too much into the negative, I do want to focus on a few things that went right with the Braves and some positive things that I am seeing, and then we are going to turn to the negative. So sorry to maybe end on the negative in this episode, but let's be honest. I mean, that's kind of what's happening, at least what happened in this series. So what went right in this 4-game series against the Phillies? Well, Matt Olson is on a hot streak. Olson is hitting much better. I mean, just to the naked eye, it's very obvious that this is really the best Olson has played all year. Now, I'm not ready to say that he's totally back. Like, I'm not ready to say he's back to his 2023 self. That's kind of a next level that even in this hot streak, he hasn't reached that level of performance. He was so awesome last year. But this is definitely the best version of Olson we've seen this year. He had 2 homers in Game 1, which, again, should have been enough to help the Braves win that game. They could not muster too much or much more offense than what he delivered in Game 1. He had another shot to center field that, if he could put about 2 more feet on the ball, would have gotten over the center fielder's head. The center fielder caught the ball right at that short wall. But anyways, he definitely, not just those 3 shots, he had a lot of other hard hit balls throughout this series. So Olson looked really good, especially against lefty. It's almost like, I don't know what it is. He just is has been a better hitter against left-handed pitching. Maybe he's just staying in and letting the ball travel a little bit more, or maybe he's just a little more relaxed against lefties this year. I'm not sure what that is, but it is good that he's hitting those guys well. And he's hitting the ball hard to all fields, much less swing and miss lately. So it's telling me that his timing is is a lot better. So this is a positive that, I mean, I talked about it last time. I was pleading, Matt Olson, we need you, and he's stepping up. So hopefully that will continue, because this Braves offense cannot do a whole lot without Matt Olson hitting in the middle of it. The other thing that went right in this series, Michael Harris's impact offensively and especially defensively is certainly being felt. It was on full display. He had this remarkable catch in Game 3 that is just all over social media, just being played as one of the best catches in recent history. I mean, at least this year, maybe him and Jankowski, if you saw that catch that Jankowski made against the White Sox to save their game. That, I mean, yeah, 1 and 2, right? I think Harris's probably was a little better catch. Jankowski's, in terms of the situation and impact on a game, maybe is better, but that was a really sweet catch. I wish it could have helped the Braves, turn the game around and win the game, but it wasn't to be. Still a tremendous catch, and he made quite a few really good catches throughout this series. He also hit a home run last night in Game 4. He is still just, we know that Michael Harris has tremendous raw power. I think since he's come back, he has been a little pull happy. When he came back, his average was around 250. It's actually dipped a little bit since he's returned. He has hit a few home runs, and he's hitting the ball hard. But again, I think Michael Harris at his best is hitting those line shots to left center field, which allows him to stay on those off-speed pitches more and more consistently stay back and hit them really hard too. So, he's swinging and missing a lot. The strikeouts are definitely racking up. He's chasing balls out of the zone a good bit. But one thing we know is when he puts the bat on the ball, he hits it hard. So that has certainly been true. But, the fact that that's what he's doing right now, I really wish Snit would keep him in the 5 or 6 hole in the lineup and just let him hit the ball hard somewhere. And I think at the top of the lineup, I don't love the rest of the lineup and the impacts when Harris is at the top. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a little bit. But all that being said, yeah, Michael Harris and his impact and his return has been really good for the Braves overall. The other really good thing this series was the starters, and we knew this was true, but the starters continue to post really strong starts as their streak of starts allowing 3 or fewer runs continues to grow. I think it's at like 21 games now, which is a tremendous stretch. And I mean, that is a huge component of being able to play winning baseball, right? It's telling you that your offense doesn't need to do a whole lot. They just need to, like I said, score 4+ runs a game and you'd be golden. And I mean, obviously, if they could have done that in Game 4 or even Game 3, they would have won those games. So the pitching is not really the problem. It is highlighted more, especially when the bullpen blows it. It's highlighted more at the end of the game. But it's like offense, if you could have scored a little bit more, we wouldn't be in this situation. So, unfortunately, Chris Sale, his turn did not fall for this huge series. He had a really nice start against the Twins right before this series started. It would have been great to see him post here, but I'm not in favor of at this point, trying to tweak your lineup just to get your 4 best pitchers in this 4-game series. I don't know if the Phillies did that or if it just fell that way for them. They definitely had their 4 best starters go in this series. But all that being said, the Braves still got 4 solid outings. Maybe not dominant, but 4 solid outings from their pitchers. Morton in Game 1, 3 earned runs in 5 2/3. Now those 3 earned runs, I'm going to talk about him a little bit more. I wish it had been 0 earned runs in 5 innings. That would have been just fine for me. But Lopez comes back, 1 run in 6 innings. Fried, 3 earned runs in 7. He's able to post 7 innings, which was really good for the bullpen, and a little rest there. And then Schwellenbach, 3 earned runs in 5 2/3 innings. Two earned runs in 5 2/3 innings in Game 4. So again, I'll get into some of the poor pitching decisions made by Snit in a little bit, but on paper, these performances should be good enough at very least to split a series, if not win a series. Every time out, your starting pitchers are putting you in a position to win the game. The starting five for the Braves, it is by far their biggest strength moving forward. It really should carry them to the playoffs if the offense can be anywhere close to just average. But right now, the offense is definitely inconsistent. Like I said, it was good against the Twins. It was subpar against the Phillies. So what went wrong in Philly? So number one, the offense went totally silent against the Phillies' best 4 starters. Well, not totally silent. All right, Game 2 was solid, but in the 4 games the Braves played, they scored a total of 13 runs. Again, 7 runs of those were in Game 2, but even if you include those, that's still just an average of just a little over 3 runs per game. This is not good enough. And yes, again, you're going against 4 really good pitchers that the Phillies are throwing out there, especially Wheeler and Nola, but you have to find a way to try to score more than 3 runs per game in this kind of crunch time series. You just have to. The only starter the Braves really got to for the Phillies was Ranger Suarez. They were able to kind of get him out of the game early, and then they were able to tag on more runs because the Phillies are throwing their lower leverage starters. I mean, that's kind of what happens when you're able to get to a starting pitcher. You really are able to win comfortable games. So it's super important to be able to do that. But the Braves, otherwise, their starters, the Phillies were able to go deeper into the games. The Braves aren't able to put them away, even in Game 1 where they had the lead. And the Phillies are pitching their higher leverage bullpen guys in those games. And just being honest, when the Phillies had their higher leverage guys on the mound, the Braves offense was dominated, right? It just they were overmatched when the better Phillies pitchers were on the mound. So that was definitely a negative. Number 2 negative in this series, questionable coaching decisions by Snit. So particularly Game 1 and Game 4, these are the games that got away from the Braves that they absolutely could have won. So Game 1, Morton was certainly pulled too late. I mean, this was the biggest bad decision by Snit. Then, Bummer is allowed to go back out after he's able to get out of a little bit of a jam when he comes in. And then, then this forces Holmes to come in with runners on in a pressure spot, and he's not able to come through. So, Morton had given you, let's start with that. Morton had given you 5 shutout innings. Let's just remind ourselves, Morton, we're in September now. He's 40 years old. He's really bounced back in a pretty good way recently, but you have to feel so good about Morton just giving you 5 shutout innings. And, when he's sent back out for the 6th, I bet most fans like me, we're getting nervous. Like, you're all right, you've already gotten a good outing out of him. It's like you're trying to squeeze out one more inning I'm sure to save your bullpen another inning. But even if you do that, to me, it's like you have to have somebody up in the bullpen. And as soon as Morton allows anybody on base, gets into any kind of trouble, get him out of there. He's done. Shake his hand. Good job, Charlie. Instead, Snit doesn't have anybody out, or at least isn't ready to pull the trigger. He allows 2 runners on with 1 out at that point. I'm thinking you're done. He still allows Morton to pitch and allows this 3-run homer. Now, the other frustrating, annoying thing about this home run is it was totally wind aided. I mean, it was just lofted into the wind, and it barely gets out. So yeah, that is really frustrating, but still, it was one of those situations that I just felt like, why is Morton still in the game? Why was he allowed to pitch? And of course, you also know that this 40-year-old guy who is nearing 100 pitches, his one big issue really typically is allowing the home run ball. And of course, that's what happened. So then you bring in Bummer, right, with runners on. He's able to get out of the jam that, Charlie pitched beyond that home run. Bummer's able to get out of the jam, and I think in one pitch. And look, Bummer has also been really spotty this year. I remember thinking in the moment, okay, he got out of that one. Thank goodness, get him out of the game. And instead, Bummer comes back in, and gets into a jam of his own. And then you bring in Holmes, he's had some good moments this year, but the rookie is put into a tough spot, and then he gives up ultimately a 2-run homer to Castellanos, and what was a 4-0 lead, and then a 4-3 lead turns into a 5-4 loss. Snit emptied the tank in the Twin series. It was a series that required a lot of bullpen innings. You had 2 extra inning affairs. So I know that probably Jimenez and Iglesias were not available for game 1. I'm just assuming that, but I am wondering, where is Dylan Lee in this situation? I mean, this is the other guy that I have tremendous faith in. He's one of your best bullpen arms. He had not pitched in the last game of the Twin series. He had pitched a little bit in that series, but he was certainly fresh. Unless if he's dealing with an arm issue I don't know about or whatever, but he's still able to go out at times and get outs. But it does seem like the Braves are not leaning on him beyond these kind of come in and shut down an inning kind of situations. So I just don't know where Dylan Lee is, but I really wish he had been used in game 1. It's just like you're up in game 1, you have this lead, and I know that you need to think about your bullpen innings and all that, but you have to, if you're Brian Snitker, prioritize game 1, right? If you have a win out in front of you against the Phillies and to start this series off on the right note, you have to secure this win, and they didn't do it. So super frustrating. And then, game 2 goes well for the Braves. They get on Ranger Suarez. Game 3, let's be honest. I mean, you want the offense to perform against Zach Wheeler, but he's one of the best pitchers in the National League. But game 4 was also right there for you. And this one is the other one where I'm not putting all the blame on Snitker, but there were definitely some bad decisions in this one as well. Lineup construction, in-game substitutions that didn't make a whole lot of sense and came back to bite the Braves in extras. And then again, bringing in Holmes in a really tough situation, putting him back into the fire against Castellanos again. And we know how that went. So a lot of blame for the game 4 loss certainly goes on the players. There was really poor execution throughout this game, but it also might have been one of the worst coached games of the year for Snit, and that's bad timing in such a big series. So to start the game, I hated the lineup construction for this game. I think Merrifield, even though he's been in a little bit of a downturn, I think he needs to be at the top of the lineup. Even though he has not gotten a ton of hits lately, he was in a big 0 for 20 something lately, but he's still gonna make the pitcher battle. He's typically gonna draw some walks and get on base. And he gives you some speed at the top. But the bigger thing that it allows is that it gives Michael Harris a chance to slide down into the middle of the order where the Braves are desperately needing some punch. And instead, they had Merrifield in the middle of the lineup. And I just don't understand why you have Merrifield in the middle of the lineup kind of ever. And so, I think that came back to bite him in a couple of at-bats in this game. I'm also wondering, why is Jared Kelenic in the lineup? He has done nothing for you lately. Laureano has been one of your best hitters. He's sitting on the bench. And Kelenic didn't do anything in this game. Well, I think he had a hit. Okay. But nothing of substance. So, go with your hottest hitters. I mean, you're just wasting Laureano on the bench right now. And then why is Adam Duvall getting the crucial at bat in extra innings against a righty? It made no sense. Eli White had come in for defensive reasons, which again is a questionable decision, but okay. I'd rather have Eli White going against a righty in that situation, believe it or not, because Duvall has been so bad against righties all season. Are we just letting guys play for their let's give them some, positivity. Hey, we still believe in you. We'll throw you out there in this game of all games. You're going to do that. I didn't love it at all. And then the pitching decisions at the end. I mean, it looked like Bummer might get out of the jam in the 11th. I really thought he would blow it because he generally has not been good in those pressure situations lately. But he was 1 out away. But then you bring in Holmes um, against Castellanos again, right? And Holmes, he had him 2 strikes, but a terrible executed pitch, a fastball, which Castellanos crushes fastballs, a hittable fastball, and game over. And it's just, again, putting Holmes, a rookie who I feel like you've gotten some good things out of, but it's like suddenly the Braves think he is a high leverage guy, putting him into these tough situations in 2 games in the series, and he doesn't come through. And I'm just like, I blame him. I mean, yeah, again, the execution was bad, but man, that's a tough position to put him in of all guys. So yes, just some really bad decisions in games 1 and 4 from Snit. Now, also poor execution. Again, I'm not just blaming Snit. The players have to play. The Braves left 6 men on base in game 1, 7 on base in game 3, and 9 men on base in game 4. And again, that one is the one that really stands out more than any of the others. In game 4, specifically, they were 0 of 10 with runners in scoring position. I think especially of Arcia's pop-up with a runner at third and 1 out. It was just a killer at bat, just a terrible approach from him. I know he had a 2-homer game earlier in the series, but I mean, in terms of being a situational hitter, it's just frustrating, right? He's swinging, especially in those moments. He's just over aggressive, swinging at every pitch that comes anywhere close. And in that situation, be patient to find a good pitch to loft out to the outfield for for a sacrifice fly, and it just didn't happen. So certainly offensive execution, which I talked about last episode, they have to be able to do those things, and they just didn't do them very well in this series. And again, this series is what highlights it because they're close games, right? They're hard fought games against a better team that the Phillies aren't perfect in execution, but clearly they're a little better at it than the Braves. And it's really the difference in the series. So the other bad thing that went noticed by me in the series is the bullpen is showing some cracks. The bullpen has actually been one of the strengths of this team throughout the year. If you look at most numbers, the Braves have one of the better bullpens in baseball. But that's a picture of the entirety of the year. If you look at a snapshot of the Braves bullpen right now, I'm a little nervous about it. Mentor is down for the year, so you've lost one of your best high leverage pitchers. And so the back end of the bullpen, the high leverage guys, it's just a little thinner, right? You've got Iglesias and you feel good about Jimenez. And I wish Dylan Lee was at the back end. I guess he's not, according to Snicker. I'm still confused by their usage of Dylan Lee. And then the middle guys, Chavez is going downhill. I mean, he's 41 years old. I think we've gotten as much as we will from Chavez. Holmes, again, he's being put in high leverage spots and failing right now. And again, I don't fully blame him. I think he's being misused. And then of course Luke Jackson is not reliable at all. So he's barely used in these types of games. And then Bummer's hit and miss. I mean, he can come in and get you a ground ball, but half the time the ground ball finds a hole. So look, compared to most other bullpens, the Braves are in a very good situation. But in terms of, big time games, needing to get as much as you can out of your pitching staff because your offense isn't coming through a lot, it's just they have to be really good the rest of the way. Okay, finally, the fifth negative thing I took away from this series, the lack of depth in the lineup and the inability to drive in extra runs. It just continues to haunt them. And again, but a lot of that is because they have guys playing that just really shouldn't be in crunch time situations. The lineup at the end of game 4 was laughable. This goes back to, I think, Hal Snicker is subbing guys in and out and misusing guys. I mean, you literally had really big, crucial crunch time at bats being given to Luke Williams and Adam Duvall against a righty with runners on base in high pressure situations, and it just didn't work. Why would you expect it to work? The Braves subbing out Soler. I know, the defensive question marks, but his bat has to be in the lineup, even though he hasn't been hitting very good lately. He still has the ability. Even Urshela, who's not hitting the cover off the ball, he's still going to give you decent at bats typically, and he'll get a single here and there, and I'd kind of rather him be in there in crunch time than Luke Williams. So you have to have your best 9 guys in the lineup for this team. You just do. Hopefully Ozzie is going to come back soon and improve that group even a little bit more. But you don't have the depth and you don't have the talent on your bench to be subbing guys out for pinch runners and that sort of thing. You just don't. So now the Braves sit 7 games back of the Phillies. The division, I hate to say, I think it's all but lost. You're only 1 game up on the Mets. So this series certainly had a chance to go the total opposite direction and really put you in the driver's seat in the wild card, at least the last spot in the wild card, maybe vying for the division. It's totally flipped in the negative after this series. So the Braves have to go back to work. They have to bounce back. I will say they've been pretty good at bouncing back this year, so they have to do it again. They'll host 3 games at Truist against the Rockies, who they should beat. But the truth is the Braves have struggled against some of the worst teams in baseball this year. They need to go in there, take care of business, and honestly sweep the Rockies. They need to bounce back in that big of a way. Very thankfully, Chris Sale is going in game 1, so hopefully all will go according to script, and the Braves will take that, and also hopefully the offense can bounce back and start scoring some runs again. So after the Rockies, the Braves have 3 more at home against the Blue Jays, and then they have a 1-game makeup against the Reds. The unfortunate timing of that makeup is the Braves, after a day off on Monday today, they won't have a game off for a while. So, because of that makeup game. So just more weirdness schedule-wise for the Braves. Then they have a weird 2-game road series against Washington. Then they come back and play the Dodgers at home. So, the rest of the way, I'm not even going to say this is, every game matters. Every game is crunch time. Should you say must win? You're not going to win every game moving forward. Certainly not with this group, but every game is important. And thankfully, at least it seems like the Braves have their starting 5 set and are going to have, for the most part, good pitching the rest of the way. The offense just has to figure things out. So it's time to regroup, play good baseball again, and lean on Chris Sale for game 1 against the Rockies. So, look, not all is lost. The Braves are still 1 game up on the Mets. If you're asking me, I think the Braves still have a better chance than the Mets do to take this last spot. But I think this last spot in the wild card is basically the Braves' only avenue to make the playoffs at this point. And that's okay, and if they make it, they can do some damage in the playoffs. But I think that's the reality now after this series, and we're just going to have to keep watching and hope that the Braves can play good baseball the rest of the way. So, guys, thanks for tuning in for another episode of Stay the Braves. I'll talk to you soon.